is so terribly wrong with knowledge and conditioning? Why should the human being seek to change himself in that respect?
I don't know if we have time this morning to go into this question of knowledge. After all, knowledge, to put it very briefly, knowledge is the result of experience, whether very limited experience or experience which is from which you gather knowledge more and more and more, as in the scientific world. That knowledge is always limited. Anything more or anything better is always limited because it's measurable, both psychologically as well as objectively. Anything that's measurable is limited. And knowledge must always be limited. I think this is obvious. Can never be complete knowledge about anything. There may be complete knowledge about some dead thing, but a living thing, and it's living, moving, changing, and you cannot have knowledge completely about a thing that is constantly changing, moving. And so knowledge is limited.
But that knowledge and that conditioning...
Knowledge is conditioning.
Yes, but still they play a very vital part.
Of course. That's understood. Technologically and so on, it's a tremendously important thing. It's there you must have measurement, comparison, evolving certain facts and moving, constantly moving. You can see what's happening in the technology world. You invent something one day and a few months later somebody changes it and adds more and so on. It's constantly being added where there's invention and so on and so on. It's quite clear that. And perhaps that same movement is carried over to the psychological realm, where we consider knowledge is necessary. That is, in the subjective world, we consider knowledge is essential. To know oneself. To know oneself is really a very, very limited comprehension. Knowledge, because knowledge is limited. But knowing is a movement, not to know. I don't know, there is a difference between knowing and something which you know.
Could you enlarge a little bit upon that, please?
Then something which you know is static, to which you can be adding. And what you add to what is already, it becomes static, mechanical. But the constant knowing, that's learning, not accumulating knowledge, but constant learning, moving, inquiring, exploring, pushing, that is not based on knowledge, it's a movement. Like life is a movement. Whether it's the movement in a tree, in a small blade of grass, or in the most amazing animals like the tiger, the lion, and the giraffe, or the small insect. And it's the same life as in us. Therefore, one has to respect life. not kill life. So we must come back to our beginning, which is can the brain be ever free from that, from all the programs we have received. And the speaker, K, says it is possible. It is possible only through watching, not condemning or accepting, but just watching the whole movement of your thought, watching the way activity of thought, watching how the origin, the beginning of thought. And so, in this watching, the brain then becomes much more sensitive, not only to its own responses, but sensitive to nature, to everything around one, to the world that is becoming more and more dangerous, and to the world of one's own psyche, so that there is a constant objective and subjective relationship, an interchange, never coming to a final decision, that is never taking a position from which you move. And this requires not only a great deal of leisure in this sense, not doing it as a hobby, but is part of life. One must have leisure to look at life. One must have this time to see what is actually happening, not what you wish or desire to happen, but what is actually in our daily life is going on. And that watchfulness makes the brain extraordinarily acute, sharp, clear. And this clarity is really, if one goes into it very, very deeply, is total freedom.
Harshad sir, please unmute.
Yes. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, friends. Today is a very short video, but I think it is very important. The title I liked very much, Watching the Beginning of Thought. In the beginning of this video, Mary Zimbalist asked a question about what is wrong with knowledge and conditioning, and Krishnaji is answering about the knowledge that we have gathered knowledge through experience, and knowledge is limited, and so on. I don't know why Krishnaji talks about limitation of knowledge, because even if we have complete knowledge, still I think there is a problem because that knowledge which we have gathered will interfere in the way we look and we listen. So knowledge, whether it is incomplete or complete, I think it is a block in looking, listening, learning. Because when we are very young, a child doesn't have much experience, much memory, and it seems to me that the children they look very curiously at everything, and they are not thinking about what they are observing, and their eyes are very fresh, their mind is very fresh. And I had seen one video of one girl. She was a young girl and she was blind. But then through operation, she gets the eyes. And after the operation, when the bandage is removed and she is able to look at everything in the room, even the face of the mother, and she is looking so curiously and smiling, and everything looks very new. Even the rubber balloon or any chair or glass, everything looks very new when our brain is free. And that means the knowledge is not interfering in our looking, listening. No doubt we all have knowledge, and as we grow older and when we go to school and college and university, we gather a lot of knowledge, and then that knowledge interferes in our looking at the beauty of nature, beauty of faces of human beings. And from my own experience, I would say that when I was young, I could look at a flower and the dewdrop and the sunlight falling on the flower. Everything looked very beautiful, very new, fresh. But then I went to college, university, school, and then my mind was thinking too much. And when I went to America, I had many problems, and my mind was involved in just problems, which are going on day and night, and thoughts are going on, and we are not curious to look. But then I came across a book of Krishnaji, and then I became very curious because Krishnaji said that all human beings go through problems in their life, and I was going through problems. And Krishnaji said that humanity has suffered for thousands of years, and then all these problems like fear, anger, jealousy, loneliness, which are common to all human beings. That is what Krishnaji was saying. Whether you are American or Indian or Chinese, we all have these problems, psychological problems. And then Krishnaji was telling that where is the source of these problems. Now, I read in the book of The Flight of the Eagle, the first book which I came in 1973, and I was doing my PhD in America at that time. And so I became curious, and Krishnaji said that all our problems of psychological nature is coming from thinking, and from thinking comes the sense of I or me, and then this me, this ego, gets attached to many things, and there is fear and desire, and all these problems arise from this ego. And that is what traditional philosophy also says. But the traditional philosophy does not tell us from where this ego comes. And I had read traditional philosophy, Upanishads, but first time I read in Krishnamurti's book that our problems, this ego, it comes from thinking. And so if we want to really understand, look, we have to go right at the beginning of a thought. And that is what Krishnaji is saying in this video. That means to be very, very curiously attentive, uh, looking at the beginning of a thought. And to do that, initially at least, one needs to be alone and silent and curious. And uh, the whole attention is turned inward, looking at the beginning of a thought. And when I try to do that, I had a first time I felt that there is nothing. There is no this sense of I or me or ego, that there is a kind of awareness which can look at the beginning of a thought, and it can move with thought also. That means there is no interfering, there is no observer, this sense of I, me, saying that I like this thought or I don't like, and getting involved into that. But there is a possibility of watching the thoughts as they move. And I found that this is a real learning. If a person can watch clearly the thoughts as they are unfolding without interpreting, without analyzing, then it tells the whole story of ourselves, our life. And that kind of direct learning, a direct insight into our own mind, it gives us it gives us some kind of authenticity that we are speaking from our own direct learning and not repeating what Krishnamurti has said. Because I feel that many people, they become very clear in what Krishnamurti is saying, but they have not looked directly at their own mind in action through awareness, which is not thinking. So I remember one professor had come to Krishnaji and he said to Krishnaji that I have studied your teachings for 30 years and everything is very clear conceptually, but there is no movement, there is no change, no transformation, no real deep change at the core. That means no clarity. And Krishnaji and the professor said, I have not moved at all. That means I have not changed. And Krishnaji said, you have not moved because you have not stopped. Stopping means stop gathering the knowledge even of Krishnamurti. And little bit we can read of Krishnamurti and forgetting Krishnamurti and being attentive to our own mind, how these thoughts are arising, without analyzing, without this observer, the me, coming and trying to change thought. Because that is the problem with human beings, that when they see that there is anger, they want to change anger and say, I want to be free. And that wanting to be free, that is what should be. And what is the anger. And Krishnaji says, watch the unfolding of anger within you without trying to change anger or fear or jealousy or loneliness. So when we are able to look at what is as it is within ourselves, our mind becomes really very sensitive. As Krishnaji also said somewhere here, the brain becomes very sensitive. Even our body becomes sensitive. And then there are certain changes begin to happen within the body and the brain. And it affects even the way we look at a tree or a human being or anything, cloud or a star or a moon. everything looks very new, very fresh when this awareness, this choiceless awareness or intelligence is awakened. And so Krishnamurti's teachings are basically about awakening of awareness, which is not thinking. And that is a very, very important thing, that there is a dimension within us which can look at thoughts as they are without trying to change them. And when such a thing happens, a person feels that something new has really happened. And then the learning becomes always more and more by direct observation than reading books. Reading the book of our own life becomes very, very interesting, and learning directly from our own mind. So, this is what I have to say right now, that watching the beginning of a thought from the dimension of awareness, which is not thinking. And this is the amazing thing. When such a thing happens in the life of a human being, it really changes our life at the core. And then we can see everything fresh, new every day. Okay, I think Dinesh Ji wants to talk about it. Thank you.
Dinesh,
Thank you, Harshad sir. Are you able to hear my voice?
yes,
Yes,
I will directly come to the point. In today's discussion, the main points are knowledge, conditioning, why the human beings seek to change themselves in that respect, watching the thought, difference between knowledge and knowing or learning. Now, in nutshell, what JK has to say and my views and additions to them. As per JK, knowledge is result of experience. It is conditioning and is always limited. I would like to add in this is knowledge mainly comes under purview of intellect, and there is limitation of intellect. Moreover, it registers knowledge in images and words, which are not actuality. Word mic is not mic. Second, conditioning. Knowledge, when registered in mind, brain Leo, it becomes conditioning. Further experience adds to this conditioning. This is what JK says. It plays a vital role in technological field, but in psychological field, it creates problem. In past, we have talked enough of conditioning. However, it is to be seen, in my views, really any such difference between technological field and psychological field exists. As in technological field also, many feelings and emotions are associated with the issue, and vice versa in psychological field, issues also intellectual cause and related matter exist. Anyway, as JK says, a sharp and clear mind can differentiate between the two. Further, JK says there can never be a complete knowledge about living thing which is live, moving and changing. You can have complete knowledge about dead thing. So we consider knowledge is essential to oneself is a very limited, a very little comprehension. Here comes the difference between knowledge and knowing. Knowledge is something you know which is static, to which you can be adding, and then it becomes mechanical. But the constant knowing, that is learning, is not accumulating knowledge, but constant learning, moving, inquiring, exploring, pushing. It is a movement like life. Life is a movement. It is a movement in plants, animals, and in us. JK further says, can the brain be free of all the programs we received? JK says it is possible through watching, not condemning, not accepting, but just watching the whole movement of thought. Watching the very activity of your thought, watching the very origin of thought or beginning of thought. And so in this watching, the brain then becomes much more sensitive to nature, to everything around one, not only to its own responses, but this requires not only a great deal of leisure, in a sense, not doing it as a hobby, but it is a part of life. One must have leisure to look at life, have the time, what is actually happening, what is actually going on in one's life. And that watchfulness makes the brain extraordinarily acute, sharp, clear, and this clarity is really, if we go into it very, very deeply, is total freedom. Now, in my views, the JK statement here about watching the whole movement of thought is incomplete in this discussion, as ultimately the freedom will be there when movement of thought reduces. Individually, it may be possible for JK just by watching to get accurate, sharp, clean, and clarity of brain. It may not be possible for other persons. Also, he said free time is required, which may not be available to that extent to them. Suppose a person is working in office, will he get that much time? That is to be seen. So here comes the question of what is there to watch in a thought. Its origin, its beginning, its activity, the whole movement. Does thought move from left to right in your brain like a film moves or vice versa? Is thought appear in brain in front of you from nowhere, from back to front, and then disappears, and new thought comes from back to front from unknown source? All this does not matter in my view. Thought is like, say, container. Thought is like a container which is loaded with different material from time to time, which we call content of consciousness in JK's words. The movement is energy, thou the content is material. The movement is energy, thou the content is material. This energy not only creates the thought, but as per importance, significance, heart pinch, sorrow pinch, or pain you are carrying, etc., give prominence, clarity, frequency, and intensity, etc., to the thought. Means, suppose if you are having a intense matter, then that thought will be continuously repeating. So frequency will be very fast. Frequently it will be repaired. It will be coming to your mind. Likewise, the other things. So while watching, your understanding should give attention to the content in such a way that mind should make changes as per the need be. Simple seeing will not do. In my experience, in my case, this has not happened. In my case, I have to attend to it and see what is going on and give the due respect or due attendance to it, and then it has reduced. If attention is there, then mind will be in a position to see the truth and necessary changes may be there. Why I use the word may here? Because for the changes, free energy should be available. So second point is the free energy should be available, then only the changes will take place. In my experience, according to free energy, first mind will make changes to the less intensity, superficial, cache, garbage, pain, pleasure, etc., memory programs, and or we can say trash programs, and then to the deep rooted conscious and unconscious programs. So first it attains the, as per the available energy, superficial problems, and then it goes to the deeper level. This is what my experience is. Of course, time is required in this. So now here comes the question of time also. In case of JK, time may not be required. So it depends again on individual. As we see in technological field, there is an individuality. JK may not be knowing all the things in technological field. Similarly, there may be cases of individual which JK may not have access. We don't know. Because we see in the world, there are many varieties. This world is actually multidimensional, multifaceted, and with various animals and various, you can say the other, whatever he has mentioned, plants and trees and all that. So there is a variety. So it is not necessary that you will know all the things and you will know a solution for, you can have the solution for all the things. So these are my views. So this dialogue actually is not, in my views, complete here in this, at least in this discussion. Even we see the other JK literature, there are also so many other things are mentioned depending on that discussion and the people seeing him as per the need of the people sitting there and all that. So basically, you have to see that on one discussion we cannot conclude, or we cannot go for, he himself has said in this dialogue that you cannot make any this conclusion that this is only the right thing. So there are also other things, and we have to see the Krishnamurti literature in a total way or exhaustive way. Thank you. Right now, I want to say this much only. Then we will see further.
Dakshina Murthy, sir.
Yeah. Good evening to all. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
See, the title of the video is "What is the beginning of thought?" So let us start from there. What is the beginning of thought? See, we all know the response of memory to a given situation is thought. The response of memory to a given situation is thought. Thought is a movement and it is a mechanical process. Now let us see what is the memory. Memory is nothing but knowledge stored in the brain cells. Now let us see what is knowledge. Knowledge is experience gathered by us. We have a lot of experiences in our life on a day-to-day basis, and based on that experience, we gather knowledge, and the knowledge is stored in the brain cells as memory. The response of that memory to a given situation is thought. So that is the beginning of thought. Now, Krishnaji is saying knowledge is limited. He has given a lot of examples for that, and also he said whatever is measurable is, it cannot be unlimited. It is whatever is measurable is limited, and it is a additive process. Whatever experiences you are having again and again, they will add to the knowledge that you already have. So Krishnaji is telling knowledge is limited. And he is also telling there is something immeasurable. So if you want to understand something immeasurable, you cannot use a knowledge which is limited and which is measurable. Now, thought is coming from knowledge, right? So thought is also limited. And also, if you see the structure of thought and the nature of thought, you will be able to understand that it is divisive. By its very nature, it is divisive. Without division, thought cannot move. And Krishnaji has told us, and we also realize now, that division means there is a conflict. Division means there is a contradiction. Contradiction means conflict. Conflict means loss of energy and various other problems will come. Now, with this, why thought is divisive, that also you should understand. Suppose I see a nice tree in a garden, right? I want to convey that to my friend. To convey that, I have to use thought. So I tell him, it has got a very strong trunk, that means division. It has got wonderful branches, again division. It has got green leaves, again division. It has got white flowers. It has got yellow fruits, whatever. So the movement of thought itself is a divisive process. And thought is limited because knowledge is limited. Now this thought, when it enters the psychological world, which is a whole, which is indivisible, it is it is called holy. Suji says it's whole. So the whole thing, thought can never understand because its very movement is divisible. Suppose I am a scientist sitting in a laboratory and I look at some bacteria under the microscope. I am the subject, and what I am looking at, that is the bacteria, is the object. There is a clear division there, subject and object, observer and the observed. In a situation like that, thought can do wonders, like it has done in the technological world, in the physical world, all these things we all know. But in the psychological world, where everything is unique, everything is complete, everything is complete, there is no division, everything, it is whole. Thought cannot understand. That's why the whole problem is coming when thought enters the psychological field. Thought, which has done so many wonderful things in the physical world, after when it enters the psychological field, where it is not required. Krishnaji talks about the art of living, and he also mentions art means keeping everything in its right place. Suppose we go into a room, if everything is not in its right place, we feel very uncomfortable. In our day-to-day living also, we see that. Likewise, thought has a place in the physical and technological world, but it has got no place in the psychological world. But in its quest for security, it has entered the psychological world to which it does not belong in the first place, and it has created havoc because of the divisions, the division of nationalities, division of religions, division of caste and communities, language divisions. All these things have been started by thought, and because of that only so much of conflict, a struggle, and fighting, ending into war and all that. So when you know the beginning of thought, and when you are able to observe the movement of thought, and if you are able to watch it, if you are able to watch the thought without observer, that means without interference from knowledge, then there could be a transformation, and that is essential. Thank you.
अब वीडियो चालू करूंगा मैं तो वो भी चालू है.
Pradeep ji.
Pradeep sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, friends. A very interesting topic and very important one. Of course, I will not give a review of what Dakshina Murthy said, but listening to whatever has been said right now in this short video, things are very clear. He is talking of limitedness, knowledge of so-called mechanical things, technology, then he's talking mainly about psychology and life and living. It means to myself. He's indicating that you look into yourself because life changes frequently, almost constantly. Life is changing, all of us. So there is no question of getting. That's why he says getting knowledge about the self is you can know about the conditioning, but otherwise self, which is always changing with the changes all around, one has to be only alert, one has to be cautious, one has to be watching. You see, on daily basis, what happens in my life, when I go out for a morning walk, so naturally something invites in nature. Something as a different, some call is there, always. It calls you. This is my experience on daily basis. Something calls you, something looks different and invites you to be friendly with, to see it very clearly. And then at that moment, thought is not there. Thinking stops totally. When you see that, thinking stops, something, observer gets absorbed in something, and I move on. I click, naturally being interested in sharing with that image with others. But the beauty can never become a thought. I still don't know. When you will see those pictures, Harshad Bhai frequently he sees my pictures. So they'll have opinion about those images according to their psyche. But otherwise, beauty cannot become thought. Never. And then I go to move other, and something invites, something happens daily. At that time, there is no thinking. Thinking stops absolutely. So thought is something. Now we are talking about watching the beginning. So you see, this something, limitedness has always a beginning and an end, a measurable thing he's talking about. So whether this will become a thought, I don't know, because as I said, daily basis way, whether that becomes a thought, it means you have accumulated part of that and consider that as you know about it. Then it becomes a thought, and it is not complete in the sense because it has become a part of your memory. You see, but if it is complete, then no, it doesn't become a thought. This is what my personal experience I'm telling. So he's talking about basically about life, which is ever changing. He's talking about learning, which is ever learning. I have to be attentive about life, what is happening right now around me, everything. So it's a pleasure. And that is only possible when you're not accumulating it. You see, if you accumulate, that will definitely interfere with your next frame. So these things one has to see in himself. Rest is very clear. Harshad Bhai has talked about everything. So you comprehend these things. You will have understanding about things through your life, through my life. When it changes, how it stops, what it accumulates, what is my psyche. If I go on accumulating images, I love to, you see, I don't want to see those images again and again. I never see my email, these things, even your videos somewhere. It will definitely interfere. It means you are stuck up somewhere. So these thoughts, if you are bothered about thought means you are accumulating or I am accumulating. If it's my suffering, and ego, he talks about ego. Ego is what suffers is ego, and that is my limitedness in an unlimited world. So this is what I think, friends. Thank you very much for giving me time. If there is something else comes, then I may talk about it if required. Shakti Bhai, come on, say something. Nice. Thank you.
Shakti ji.
Yes, sir. Is my voice reaching, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Your voice is clear.
Yeah. You see about this watching the beginning of thought or watching thought. Whenever I attempt to do it, it seems that when thought is watched, it seems to disappear. And I infer that perhaps the entity who is watching and thought which is being watched, it is the same entity. So it seems like the moment you start watching, you bring thought to that seat where you're watching. But it doesn't become the default mode. But it is very interesting, as Harshad ji says, that this watching thought, watching nature, it is something wonderful. For some people, it can become their second nature. They work on it. But even for those people like me, who sometimes experiment with it, it is really something very refreshing. And it is not sure that when there is watching, it is not sure that it brings joy or it brings sorrow. Any feeling can appear. And that perhaps can also be watched. So thank you, sir.
May I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Continue.
Yes. What I feel that we all think, all human beings, thinking is not a problem. It is a problem only when this awareness is not there. When this awareness is not there, the thought multiplies and it creates a lot of conflict. Observer and observed, that kind of division comes. One thought says, I like it, another thought says, I don't like it. And so all these problems happen because there is no choiceless awareness or intelligence which can look. When this intelligence is awakened, thoughts can move in a very beautiful, orderly way without creating any division. So, and about this watching, if maybe initially one has to make an effort to watch, to be alone, to be silent in a good environment and turning the attention within. But when one sees, feels the beauty of this watching without any motive, then it becomes your nature. Just like children, when they look at the soap bubble and as the soap bubble becomes bigger, there are colors are continuously spreading on the surface of the soap bubble, and these colors are continuously changing. Similarly, our mind is also like a soap bubble, continuously changing thoughts and feelings. And if a person is very, very curious, attentive, interested in watching the mind in action, then it becomes like an entertainment. And there's a great learning from this direct observation. But I feel that our conditioning is that we have a lot of time, but we like to watch the film, whether it is some cowboy film or some film about anything, a social problem or political problem. And our mind is mostly directed to the outside world, and it wants to gather more and more knowledge about the outside world, which is all right as long as there is intelligence. When there is this intelligence or awareness, one can read novels as Krishnaji used to read many detective novels. It doesn't harm you when there is this awareness. But just reading, watching films, watching sports without awareness, then what you observe, it will keep on coming in your mind without your observation, and in that lot of energy is wasted. So the main problem, what I am trying to say, is not thinking, it is the lack of awareness. When awareness comes, thoughts move without creating any problem. Okay, I have finished. Thank you.
Dinesh ji. Dinesh ji.
Yes, I also wanted to say the same thing which Harshad sir is saying, but from a different aspect or different angle altogether. If you go to see a tree without any thought, without any preparation, I would say, then it will become an escape, just like other escapes, like seeing a movie or TV or like other things. People go to picnic and all that, and it will become just like that. If you try to see the tree, then also your thought burden or thought world burden will always interfere. So first you have to take care of your thoughts so that they should not interfere. They may be there, but they will not interfere. So their pinching, their whatever their the way the thought is presenting itself, it has to go in the background, or it has to be, its intensity has to be reduced. So first that working should be there. Then only you can go for this awareness. Simply it means that you have to change your instrument. In Arvind's language, if I say, then you have to change your instrument from intellect to chetna, consciousness, means intellect to awareness. So that can happen only, and intellect has to remain calm or quiet or silent. So that can happen only when you have got that initial preparation. Yes, some people like Harshad sir may be having that for them it is possible to see a tree without any reduction of thought or this thing, but not for everybody. So this is to be seen. that what is the individual requirement. People say that we have to leave the teachings of Krishnamurti, but we don't have to leave the Krishnamurti's life. We have to live our life. So what suits us and what is happening inside us, that we have to see. And then only we can go ahead. Not by just repeating words and all that. People simply repeat the words that how thought, what was the beginning of thought and what the origin of thought, what is origin of thought. But what does that mean? Can anybody watch the beginning of thought? Or actually he has to see the roots of thought or content of thought basically. Because thought will not allow you to see the beginning. It will automatically, it will come in front of you. It will appear from nowhere. So you have to attend that content, and then content once you attend and your understanding improves, then that thought intensity will be reduced. And then you can see the tree without naming a tree or whatever we say, watchfulness, that watchfulness we can go. And this is also initial stage. Then further you have to make only the awareness as instrument. You have to use the awareness as instrument so that you can have what Krishnamurti says, the heightened awareness. So you can have access to the that dimension which is timeless or whatever you can say, immeasurable or whatever, eternal or whatever you may say. Thank you.
Adeen, sir. Adeen ji.
Yeah. So I'm outside, so I have to switch off the video. But anyway, I'll speak. So to watch the beginning of thought, one thing I come across always in the discussions is that separation is made between psychological and physical thought. So I want to question that separation because, who is making that separation? The entity which think it's logical and separate from psychological thought is making that separation, thinking that it is logical, it is correct, it is true, and it is separating the psychological thought from itself. That is the gathering of knowledge method. Anyone who follows the method, they will of course say it is logical to follow this method, and we'll keep on gathering knowledge which it calls logical. So the root of all analysis is that's the same thing. The analyzer think it's logical and separate. It doesn't belong to the psyche. But is it so that the entity which feels it's logical is separate from the psyche? Or all thought is the same? So then if all thought is the same, then what can be done? I mean, there's nothing that can be done. So if someone is saying something, you just listen without a reaction. If something happens in your mind, you listen without a reaction because, what are you going to do about it? So just like if you are in a class and you're learning, there you're just listening to the thought, and that is you're sitting in the class and you're listening to the teacher. You don't need thought to listen to the teacher and learn. You just have to listen. You don't need thought to learn. So this idea that you need physical thought or the so-called logical thought to live, I think it's a fallacy. You can always be in a state of learning without ever knowing completely something. And if same thing, if someone says something, I can just listen to it. If something arises in my mind, I can just listen to it. So so that's what I was trying to question this division which is always made in Krishnamurti circles between physical thought and psychological thought. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Harshad sir,
Yeah.
do you want to say
Yes,
something?
what Adeen said, I had few days ago, I had also asked the same question on Facebook, that what thought says it is psychological thought or physical thought. So there is no actual division, but there is a possibility in us to not say it is a psychological or physical, but just observing. It's just like we can give many metaphor, like something is going in front of you, a car is moving on the road and you are sitting on the bench and you just see the car passing by. Similarly, thoughts are passing by in our mind, and we cannot do anything to that car which is going on the road. Similarly, just being observing thoughts without doing anything, and that is the real meditation, I would say, when we don't say it is psychological or physical or I like it or don't like it. Nothing, only. And Krishnaji said that great deal of leisure is needed, and I think we all have a lot of time. But we have time for football or films or just talking, but not sitting quietly and observing. Initially, I think this is necessary, but later on, when this observing becomes your nature, you can be talking with people and still observing without any reaction. So, and Krishnaji's teachings are about an individual, us, about we as a human being. And Krishnaji also used to say, forget humanity, just look. You are humanity. What is happening there is happening inside you. So when we become very curious and begin to learn in a direct way without this knowledge which we have gathered, a direct way of observing, we can understand humanity also. And I think that is how Krishna ji learned about the human mind, by walking in nature or observing nature, talking with people. And it requires the curiosity is the most important, not in order to achieve anything, but curiosity, just like children. They are just curious to look at a butterfly or a flower, and they are not interested in gathering knowledge. So that kind of motiveless, effortless awareness, when it comes, everything becomes very interesting. And then we can listen, look without this interference of thoughts, thinking. Okay, I think if somebody else would like to speak about.
Pradeep sir.
Rajendran, maybe.
Pradeep sir has to say something. He has raised his hand.
Okay, yeah.
Then I will try to unmute.
Oh, okay. Quick response, because I was listening to Dinesh Waghmare when he said, if you go to see a tree, very interesting sentence. If you go to see a tree, the agenda is already there in your mind, and who is going there is also self, conditioned self, who is going to see a tree, knowing that it's a tree. So that way, it is not that we are talking about. If you go, there is an agenda. Then Adeen talked about that the separation between psychology or what is the other thing? How do you separate it?
Technological and psychological thought separation.
Yeah.
Physiological and psychological. Actually,
technological and psychological thoughts are not separate.
Okay, technological and psychological. Now, whosoever has gone little deep knows about it, that life is psychosomatic. You see how the messages reach from the soma to brain. It may take some time, but it is not, it is the same process. It is psychosomatic. Everything is joint. You can't, mind is separating and becoming, it is becoming a question of the mind. How it is, because we are using two words, technological, psychological. So when you use words and try to understand through words, such problems will definitely come. So it is all mixed up, and while you react to something, you don't know whether you react to a car, mechanical thing, your Mercedes or whatever it is, or your cycle. Then when it becomes material to psychology, and whether you are hurt about it, that is another entity. If you say not entity, something, if it hurts, it means it has a plan, it has some image about what is right and wrong, or good or bad, and what Harshad Bhai was talking about, likes and dislikes. So conflict is bound to be there. So there is no different. Everything is one. When you describe it in words, the problem is bound to be there, and questions will always be there. So this is in nutshell, but it does tell you, to each one of us, the relationship with things and with people and with life as such, with the environment, with subtle or gross. It tells you relationship, your attachments, your stickings, everything it tells you. So this is what is what. No questions about it. What the video we have seen, I don't think there is any question about that. Absolutely. No question. Which of these things can be questioned? Tell me what he has tried to share with us, JK. Thank you, friends. Thank you very much.
Dinesh ji.
Again, it's a very interesting question and very important question, whether there is any difference between psychological world and there is any difference between this technological world. Actually, if you see practically, there is no difference. But then why JK is giving emphasis on this? It is very simple. Very simple. Your psyche should not give any problem to you. Your mind should be very clear for the technological things. And it should be sharp, and it should attend to the technological things very easily or comfortably or conveniently, etc., etc. And your psyche should be very calm, quiet, and if possible, silent. So how this can happen? When your mind sees the truth of a thing. Suppose you are in a meditation, you see an old memory. Since because of ignorance you have not given it any attendance, then you see that it is useless today. But you don't have to do anything, but you have to see and attend to it. It will automatically go. Mind has got that power. When it sees the truth, it can remove it. Provided, again, I will say that you should have the free energy. That I will again and again repeat. So it is very simple. When mind sees the truth, it can keep the necessary things and it will remove the unnecessary things. It is very simple. Earlier, one gentleman said that in technological there is no division, and in this there is a division. It is not like that. Any movement of thought is division. Basically, any movement of thought is division. So this we have to keep in mind. And in meditation, we have to see what is, it is very simple. Like we open our almara and we see what is the old shirt and we remove it, or what is the old things which are not necessary and we keep it away simply. Simply, in the same way, mind has got capacity. It can, if it sees the truth, it will remove it, provided it should have the power, means energy. Or otherwise, he should have to take the help of, say, JK or anybody else. It is like that. That's what my views are. Thank you.
Rajendran sir.
Good evening. Good evening to all. Thank you, Kamlesh and Parekh sir. When I was listening to this video, I was just wondering, Krishna you was telling what is the beginning of that? Observe the beginning of the that. But why he was not telling ending of the that? What is the ending? What is the beginning and what is the ending? When there is a beginning, there should be an end also. But why he was not telling about what observe the ending of the thought also? Then I was wondering why he was not talking about the he was only talking about the beginning of the thought, not the ending. So then I realized that observe the beginning itself, beginning of the thought itself is the ending, is the ending of the same thought. And another thing, trying to listen to Krishnamurti, trying to understand Krishnamurti, and making efforts to understand him. That is not possible. Just to listen. Understand means understand comes naturally. And at the end of the thought, we don't even remember what he was telling. Actually, not always. Sometimes I don't remember. After listening to him for 1 hour, at the end of 1 hour, I don't remember what he was telling. So what is happening? Is there any recording stopped? I don't know. So when we are talking about thought, and it would be incomplete if we don't discuss the self-talk or the chattering. That also we have to take into consideration. What is the self-talk? What is the self? And who is talking? Whose voice it is? The self-talk, whose voice? I think that is that is the voice of the thought itself. Self, who is the self? Thought creates an entity, an illusory entity, and the thought is talking to its own creation. So observing one's thought, I think, is there any chattering is there, noise is there, or some voice are we not hearing while observing the thought? Whether what is the what is the source, origin of the self-talk? What is the content, the masala of the self-talk? It is our own experience or experience of others or our ancestors or the experience we bombarded upon nowadays on the social media, WhatsApp, Twitter and all these things, whether this is a stream of consciousness. So observing one's thought, it will be we should be always aware of the self-talk also. Is there any chattering is happening only in few individuals or all the individuals, all the people? What is the source? What is the origin? What is the content? Where that information is coming? It is a best guesswork only. For example, yesterday when I was going for a walking in the playground, there was nearly some 100 people were there. I saw some two strangers. I don't know many of them. I know only few of them because we got introduced. And yesterday I saw two strangers. Both were holding a invitation, identical invitation. I don't know what is the invitation. They were just holding the cover, some envelope. My guess is, oh, invitation. Then that is not comfortable. So what is the invitation? Why they are getting the invitation? Why we are not given? Like that is going on some assumptions, some guesswork. So the thought is never, never, never ever be content with not knowing. Because the brain is in a dark cave. It wanted to know what is happening outside. Very curious. Very curious. Just like, just like the living organisms are craving for sugar, the brain is craving for information. That may be for survival purpose or not, I don't know. So this guesswork later becomes a knowledge. So that is that guesswork has become the masala content and the essence of that self-talk. We should also take that self-talk also into consideration. Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this trying to understand Krishnamurti is a waste of energy, waste of time. Either when you listen to Krishnamurti, either you understand quickly what is behind the words which he is using, either you understand quickly or you don't understand. But when later on you try to understand, and if you understand, it is intellectual understanding. The real understanding is not in the conceptual understanding. It is what is behind, where you catch it very quickly without thinking what Krishnamurti is saying. And that is the real understanding, and that is possible for human beings when they are very, very curious to listen not only to the words but what is behind. And one cannot try, I think, because if you try to listen again, that will be a waste of energy. Your mind will be moving somewhere else and you are trying. So there is no trying. Only when you do without motive, out and curiosity, motiveless curiosity, then one can really catch very quickly what is behind the words of Krishnamurti. Otherwise, one can write articles and give speech on concepts of Krishnamurti, but that is scholarly work and that doesn't really help much, I feel. And the last sentence which Krishnaji said, clarity is total freedom. That clarity to see not only the things which are outside, but seeing the thoughts clearly, thoughts and feelings. And that seeing is not through thinking, it is through this non-verbal, choiceless, effortless awareness, which can see clearly our own thoughts. If even anger is coming, it can see the anger arising, and it doesn't say, no, I don't want anger. Then there is a conflict. So this looking without motive, without effort, without observer or this thing which wants to understand. Like sometimes Dinesh says, one must take care of one's thought. But that is a wrong way of saying one must take care of one's thought. What is that thing which tries to take care of thoughts? It is another thought actually. So either you see the thoughts or you don't see, and it creates this you as a separate from thought. And then there is a conflict. So this is a very, very interesting thing what Krishnaji is saying, that there is a possibility of looking at the tree without the word, without the information, without the knowledge. And in that, there's a clear seeing. And that's why Krishnaji was even telling the students, how do you look at a tree? How do you look at the face of your friend? So there is something behind it, and that is a non-verbal looking without the knowledge which we have gathered. And in that there is a freshness. Okay, I have finished. Thank you.
Prasad sir.
Time is over. Time is over. So please
Prasad-
end it. This is the right
Pra-
gesture to end.
Prasad
Please,
sir has
Modak,
to
end it.
say. Prasad
Please,
sir has to say
Modak.
last word.
No,
Okay,
sir. Please end it. Modak, please end it now.
Sir, the point he is making, one thing he has said here is, life is a movement. And the same movement is there in a tree, in an animal, and in the humans and in me. So that is something. And so he said, don't kill, because the same movement is there. That is one thing. Then it is like, he says, there is a difference between knowing and to
Sir,
know.
Prasad sir, please be brief.
I am closing, sir.
Okay.
Knowing and to know, that is the difference. To know is static, knowing is a dynamic. So that is all, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please end it now, Modak.
Thanks all.
Please end it.